Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. Sad day, bro. Rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne. I was thinking he has to be one of the most played stadium anthem artists of all time, right? Because like they always play that Crazy Train song. I think they play it at, the Hurricanes still? Like, I don't even know who else plays it, but they always do like that during breaks. And crazy that he lived as long as he did. Had so many hits. But
yeah,
that's going to be one thing now, because like even Iron Man I've heard. That's more on the Black Sabbath side. But I think a lot of his songs were typical like old guy rock songs that is like the demographic for people going to sporting events. They're like, oh yeah, is that Ozzy? Or like another one I hear is like Van Halen. It's like, oh, that's a Van Halen song. They're randomly playing now. Pretty soon it'll be 90s bands, bro. And you'll be like, oh, I'm the guy they're trying to target too. Although speaking of stadium stuff, Florida State, what's going on, bro? They're cutting out 12,000 seats. They trying to become Pitt?
well, that was one of the things that was already discussed when they were doing their renovations. So, I don't know. I mean, I understand some of the nonsense with it, but I mean, if we're going to call a spade, the attendance hasn't been through the roof the last couple of seasons anyhow. With them, the way that they've been so bipolar. So, in some aspects, maybe it's something that can be worked out. I mean, when you look at the Tampa Bay Stadium, their seating capacity is similar, and I would rather them. It seems like when you're going into these renovations and they're trying to go for the bigger experience, the more inclusive seating, whatever, I'd rather go that route than to be like some stadiums, not mentioning any names, Penn State, where you should be buying like 3 seats because you're morbidly obese and you're not fitting into those seats. You're sitting on top of each other.
Well, I was going to bring them up because I've heard, and I don't know how reliable some of my friends are, but I remember Penn State's doing the renovation right now. And so I had originally heard that they were doing the same thing where they're supposed to upgrade it so it doesn't feel like you're just in an erector set that could fall over and make it nicer. But then with that, they were going to do what Northwestern and what Florida State's doing, where you're getting rid of seats, but you're making like a luxury area, which is going to reduce capacity. And so I was thinking that Penn State was going to maybe drop to the 90s. But then I've been getting ribbed a little bit saying that the Penn State's new stadium renovations, they've got like some new plans where they're going to try to get their stadium bigger than the Big House. And I thought, well, that's interesting, right? Because last time they were pretty close. It was close enough that if they overfilled their stadium with like recruits and stuff on the sidelines, that they could have the most attended game of the year. And then, I can't remember if they cut seats or if Michigan just expanded, because I've been to both. And I've been to a lot of stadiums, and Michigan is built down into, like, the ground. I don't know if a lot of people realize that. So in reality, if Michigan really wanted to, and I think I've seen this on the library sites, if you look up Michigan's Bentley, I think it's Bentley Library, probably wrong on the name, people will make fun of me, but if you go there, I think they had, like, the original plans were that they dug it down into the ground, so if they ever needed to expand it with another row, you could add, like, the seats on top, which would make it by far the biggest stadium in the country, like, comparable to some of those ones in, like, is it South Korea and India that have, like, the biggest stadiums? And so that would make it the premier. But the downside with that is, like, there's not a lot of lodging and stuff. It's not like near a big city. I mean, if you're flying into what, Detroit? That's where I came through a lot of times. Like, go to Detroit, go to the game from there. But that's what I'm wondering, if Penn State really doubles down and tries to get the biggest stadium, how high and crazy, because they're not down in the ground. It's just like a big metal aluminum bleacher stadium in the middle of a field, right? How high can you get that before it's like tipping over? You just throw slabs of cement on it and hope someone doesn't Donkey Kong it apart. Like, I'll come through and just smash the stadium down. So, I don't know. What do you think the trends are? Because to me, I've always said they're trying to make sure that you get fans in the stands. That's how they make a lot of money. That's how Major League Baseball has stayed popular. Because in comparison to some of these other sports, it's pretty cheap. And you get the luxury of being outside. Where, like, if you go to an NBA game, it's more like with the DJs and everything, it's loud in some of those stadiums. And it's not for me, it's not a fun experience.
I just feel like with what most people are looking for, I feel like it's going to be different than my own personal views on it. Because there was, like, I was reading some different things about programs doing stadium renovations, and they're like, you really need to have Wi-Fi access for the people attending. I'm like, I would just look at it like, if I don't have cell phone service, then so be it. Like, I'm there to watch a game. I'm not there to play on my phone. So, like, I wouldn't even think like, oh, having a free high speed Wi-Fi would be like a top priority for me.
Well, see, I will go on the other side because I'm the same way as you. But I've been to Michigan games where I'm down, it's cold, and because my phone can't get battery or can't get service, it keeps pinging the towers, and my battery was like down to 0, and that's what I use for my GPS. So you're like, oh crap, where am I staying again? Now I have to follow these cops out, and like you leave a game where they just direct traffic to get you on the nearest highway. And then you're like, all right, this isn't how I came in. Where am I? And having to find yourself back. So that's the one thing I'm like, if they would have at least had Wi-Fi or something that I could connect to and saved my phone's battery. Now, phone batteries have gotten a lot better in, a decade. So maybe that's not so much of a problem anymore. Now I've learned, because when I was a student, they were talking about plans from like Verizon and other providers of providing like different mobile hotspots around the stadium just to help with the capacity. And I don't remember it helping too much. Like, you still couldn't really text people. At a smaller stadium, like, I've never had that problem at Pitt. And I'm not, like, being a jerk, because, like, Steeler games I'm including. Like, I've never been to a Steeler game where, like, I couldn't text, like, at the Michigan games. Penn State, I don't remember. I assume it was bad, right? They're in a worse location than what Michigan is. Pittsburgh, like Steelers, you're right downtown, and PNC is right there, so I'm assuming they have the extra infrastructure to handle it. And, of course, they're not as big. Because you're talking about 60, 70,000, and then you're going to like 110. Like, that's almost double what you're hitting. So, I hope they get... My issues with going is like parking and stuff. I've been with people, you said about you're not the normal fan. I've been with guys, dude, that they plan on leaving at the third quarter because they want to beat traffic. And that's not me. Like, if I'm going to go to the game, I'd rather sit and watch the rest of the game and hang out in the stadium until traffic clears. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not the kind of guy, like, I was at the Michigan game once. They're like, you want to go down on the field and like hang out after? I'm like, yeah, we should go do that. And they're like, no, we got to get in the car and like we got to try to get back to the hotel. I was like, why? Like, what are we doing? You that tired? Or like that hungover? Like, I don't understand why you need to get to the car to sit. Like, are you afraid it's going to be broken into? Especially because I drive to a lot of them and I'm like, no one's breaking into my car. It looks like a piece of trash, right? You have one trash car to take to events like that if you get mud slided in or something, that is just, oh, okay, that's a loss, right? But I don't know. It takes a lot, because every time I think like, all right, what do I need to do? Hopefully it's nice. I'd rather go, like especially football, college football, I'd rather go to a low-key game where I know there's not going to be a lot of people, like an early MAC-tion like matchup, right? So that it just gives you a little bit more breathing room, like you said. Because if you go to like Penn State, Ohio State, and I've been to that game at Beaver Stadium, and it's like shoulder to shoulder, and you can't really move, and you're just sitting there like crunched, and it's night, and it's dark, and it's cold. I mean, I've been in the nosebleeds too in there, and it's freezing cold. And you're like, why am I up here? They want to add more seats on top of this? Just so they can say they have the biggest stadium? I feel like I'm going to fall out of it. I'm like at an unsafe carnival that drives through the town, and they set up 1 week a summer. And you're like, oh, does this seem safe? Your parents are like, go ahead. Go ride that rusty thing that's spinning around at 80 miles an hour. Hopefully you don't fly out of it. That's what I feel like at Penn State games. I'd rather have the luxury box, but let's be kidding. Like, who are we kidding? You're not going to be able to take a family to those, right? That's not for the normal Joe. Where it's like, yo, you're going to pay season tickets and a seat fee and a luxury box pass, right? Because they'll let you sit in them, and then you won't get the dine-in service. That's extra, and that's expensive as heck. What was that one game? Was it college football or was it baseball where the guy ordered the pizza and it was like all burnt and it was like $300 or something? Remember that from last year? I think it was last year. Like, that's what you're going to get in these luxury boxes. Like, if they had it, I know, what was that commercial with Devontae Adams where he joked that he had his own Taco Bell? I know some stadiums down here have like a built-in Chick-fil-A thing or like a Bojangles, which is nice. And if they just had like the regular prices and it was kind of like, hey, our stadium on campus is also a park and ride that just happens to have a fast food restaurant inside it. Awesome, right? But a lot of these places, it's like stadium grounds are closed. You can't do anything. There's a restaurant here. It's closed, though, like only open 2 days a week. And there has to be games. And sometimes, like, I go to a game. Like, if I go to an NC State game in the Hurricane Stadium, sometimes those Bojangles and Chick-fil-A's aren't even open. And it's like, why am I here? Why do you have this? I think that was the beef with putting the Chick-fil-A in, the Atlanta or Georgia Stadium? Well, I think it was the Falcons. Where it's like, hey, you have it, but we're closed on Sunday. Awesome work, guys. That's probably why I run into issues with the Hurricanes, because I probably go on Sundays, right? That would make sense why the Chick-fil-A isn't there. So, I don't know. Anything else you want to add on stadium news?
No, I mean, when Florida State announced that they were doing that, it sounded like they were kind of tailoring it more to the bigger spenders, and I think when you're looking at some of those projects, that's going to end up being the big thing. Is like when you're looking at the people who are spending the money and signing the checks, you're not catering to the people who are going to try to buy the cheap seats. Like you're going to cater to the people that have the financial means of supporting the university long term. So if it means losing some stadium capacity to be able to build the stadium experience for the people who are cutting the checks, then you know they're going to, from the business side of it, I trust that those people know what the heck they're doing and go from there.
What about the guys that go into the stadium and just read a book because they're bored?
Well, they're tenured professors, so do whatever you, and there was nobody there, so if that's the product that you have, then so be it.
They cut his seat out, though. That's what I'm saying. He doesn't have anywhere to go. He has to read in the parking lot.
Read somewhere else.
Maybe they have a library, a quiet zone.
They should.
I mean, it's not a good look, though, if, like, I see Clemson. A lot of Clemson fans are out there dogging it. They know, like, they have a big stadium, I think. I don't even know how big theirs is. Florida State should be down right in time for Alabama to come to town, right? Florida State should be able to beat them, right?
I am still confident that they should.
I mean, Michigan had no trouble beating Bama. We didn't have an offense. No, that's last year, bro. We beat them twice in the same year. Do you not remember the Reliant Festival?
When everyone opted out.
Yeah, on our team, not on their team. Milroe played, and he could be the Seahawks starting quarterback from what I'm hearing. Because Darnold has not been impressing. Because on this show, I've been against Sam Darnold since he was seeing ghosts, right? I wasn't sold on him. I was fine with JJ learning under him. I don't know if you saw that news where they said that the Vikings had extra like cameras and mics in the helmet, and they were just letting JJ see all of Sam Darnold's like looks and views and everything from inside his helmet. And I'm like, obviously that's legal, right? And it seems like such an advantage that I could see some teams not doing that, right? Depending on the coach. Like, get one of those old coaches, they're like, we don't need this technology. Like, go out there and do reps against, like, Team D or whatever. But having the helmet on and seeing, like, the live game speed, I think would be such a big boost that we'll see how JJ does. But Sam Darnold coming out to Seattle, I think that's where he is, right? I think that's where Milroe is, too, where it's like, if he doesn't work out, then it's like another Kirk Cousins situation. Do you agree?
Yeah, I would say.
Because Kirk Cousins went to the Falcons, right, on that huge check, and it didn't work out because he stunk. So some people, I'm looking up just to make sure I'm not talking like an idiot. So people are saying, now they're teasing that there's some intriguing packages for Milroe. Oh, you mean like quarterback runs? Right? Because what else are they talking about? I mean, that's exactly what it is, right? So putting him in, if they just put him in for quarterback runs, that's going to be ridiculous. I think they're trying to get teams off the scent where you don't want to bring in a guy that had a hot year, faded down the stretch, and then have it not work out. It's basically like a Russell Wilson. We saw it with the Broncos when he went there. Sam Darnold had it happen. I mean, you couldn't even say Steelers with Russell Wilson's the same. But I don't know. Having these young quarterbacks come in and trying to throw in, oh, he can have a running package, is such a wildcat version of like the NFL gimmick. Do you agree? Like, remember a couple of years ago, I guess it was like probably a decade now, where everyone had a wildcat. Now everyone has like a young quarterback coming in and it's like their running package, like their Hurts. And they're still like disrespecting Hurts and all those like NFL and media like reports of like the top quarterbacks in the league right now. I saw one where he was like, Hurts was like 14th. And I'm like, dude, this guy has been in what, 2 Super Bowls now? I'd take him over half this list. And Phillip Rivers retired. Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
What a loser move. He retired like 4 years ago. He has been available? I think that's a bad look. I mean, it makes sense that Harbaugh probably had something to do with it because it seems like he's that kind of guy. Did you see him peeking out behind the cupboard or whatever? You probably don't keep up with Harbaugh news, but he had a thing where he was like peeking out like he was spying on practice behind like the curtain. I'll send it to you. You might not have realized it was him. You might have saw the meme. It was floating around everywhere because he is looking kind of old now. But I don't know on the year. Like, I still think this is going to be another year of Mahomes or bust. Maybe the Eagles can keep it rocking. But a lot of these teams having hype on like young quarterbacks, I just don't see it. I don't see the hype on Joe Burrow anymore. I mean, I was kind of high on him as like a winner, but to me, JJ McCarthy's a winner too. And yeah, he got the Bengals there. He got injured. Is he going to be able to get them back? Because sometimes the guy can get injured and then nothing happens. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was a winner all through college. And then he hasn't been a winner at all in the NFL. So you can't just be a winner and keep it going and then pretend like that you're good. Because I saw a thing where, I think this was like a Pittsburgh newspaper thing, where they said, who's going to have the better year, the Bengals or the Steelers, like Burrow versus Aaron Rodgers? And I thought neither of these teams are going to have a good year probably. Right? It's like such a loser mentality. It's like taking like 2 bottom teams and being like, who's going to be better this year, Rutgers or Maryland? It's like, Why am I picking this? So, haven't been getting too hyped on the NFL. I know training camps and stuff are underway, but is there anything that stood out to you this past week?
As far as what?
Just any NFL news that came out, dude. I don't think there's been a lot.
No, I didn't really see a whole lot from you, other than the NFL Netflix show about quarterbacks released a new season. So there's going to be something there.
Wasn't Kirk Cousins in that?
He was on. He was on the first season of it. I don't know if he was on the second one or not.
Okay,
Still working my way through that first season of it.
I haven't seen it, so I didn't know. What about your Raiders, dude, with Pete Carroll? You think they're going to be all right?
I think they'll be all right. I mean, I think they have a veteran quarterback. It seems like they are building it the way that the Seahawks, Legion of Boom type teams were being built. And I think there's something to be said, especially in the NFL, where you have really old coaches that have used every single scheme or have faced everything. And Carroll's been one of the few coaches that's shown he can win at the NFL, he can win in college, and he uses a different perspective to make it fit, make it work.
And that's why he's been one of... Yeah, are you there?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Didn't that happen a couple weeks ago? Or a Teams thing where it just crashed on us? Weird. Hopefully that stops happening. I have been looking into using, maybe switching to just having like the iPad when they roll that feature out. But they don't have the beta out, and I didn't opt into like the developer thing to test it out because I figured that would just be probably another headache. But last week I don't think it crashed. That was like 2 weeks ago. So yeah, now I don't know where we were even talking about if we lost you or what.
About Pete Carroll and making that leap.
Yeah, Pete Carroll, I mean, he's one of those guys that he's won everywhere. I have high respect for. Seeing the NCAA stuff that we're going to talk about here in regards to like the witch hunt against Michigan, I almost wonder how much of that witch hunt against him back in the day that pushed him back to the NFL was just a disruption from some of those teams that just didn't want an outsider winning. Because it very closely parallels the Harbaugh thing. You can't tell me that Pete Carroll wins in the NFL, comes to college and has to cheat to win, and then goes back to college and goes back to the NFL and just keeps winning, which is exactly what Harbaugh did. Like, he's won everywhere he's gone. He didn't need to cheat at Michigan. Like, Pete Carroll didn't cheat at USC. Those teams were awesome at USC. And trying to, like, put the Reggie Bush thing where, it was all Reggie Bush, that one guy, he's awesome. Like, he was the team. We're going to use that to kind of take away wins and things. It's insane. How many other coaches go to the NFL and just flame out? But they're college guys, right? Like Nick Saban, so everyone loves him. He's on like college TV shows. There were rumors, I think we talked about, where he might not be done coaching. Where's he going to go? Like, if he hates the NIL because it's unbalanced and he had an advantage at Alabama with that recruiting stuff pre-NIL, there's not really anywhere else he can go that's not giving him an open checkbook unless it's like Texas or Notre Dame or maybe USC in reality, right? Where else is he going to be able to go? Like Michigan? Ohio State? Like, I just don't see any of those teams. I mean, Michigan has its own things going on, but it would be insane if they're just like, you know what, we're bringing in the NIL playbook and we're bringing in Saban, giving him a loaded roster every year for another 5 years. It could work out. It would be hilarious. But, I mean, the only team that really makes sense for them to just throw that much money at him would be Texas. If Texas doesn't win this year, I think they have to be tired of Sarkisian enough to pull the trigger. I don't really see an NFL team taking a gamble on Saban as an old guy When a lot of the new NFL, like, hip coaches are young dudes, analytics driven, not talent guys. So, yeah, you can be great at identifying talent and bringing those in college. You can't really do that in the NFL. If a dude doesn't want to show up, he doesn't show up. Like that guy from A&M, I was talking about the Bengals earlier. Was it Shamar? What was the guy's name? Was it Shamar Stewart? Or am I thinking of someone else? Yes, Shamar Stewart. If I wrote down the right name in my notes. Went to A&M, got drafted by the Bengals, said that they didn't like the way his contract had some wording. Dude, you're like taken in the late first round, figure it out. Everyone else is kind of signing. You're going to hold out. And then he was back at A&M training. And then there were like some rumors that he might try to get out of his contract in the NFL and go back to college. I'm assuming they told him he wouldn't be eligible, because then that kind of fizzled out pretty fast where it's like, no, he won't be going back to college. Because I think you sign away your rights when you enter the NFL draft. It's not like, even the NBA, you have to withdraw. You can enter the training for it now, but before the draft, you have to kind of withdraw. If you don't get drafted, I don't think you can come back, right?
Well, I think the rule was if you didn't have an agent negotiating for you, you could go back as long as you didn't sign.
Well, I thought they just added a late period. Like, if you got drafted, though, you couldn't come back. Now, if you didn't, well, I think you had to withdraw, though. Like, if you didn't get drafted, because, like, what if Donovan Edwards, I mean, I guess he was out of eligibility, right? But, like, what if a guy like that didn't get drafted and then decided to come back? I mean, Michigan would take him, right? I think from basketball, watching it, like, Michigan had some guys declared early, but they also got that transfer from UAB that was slated for the first-round pick, and he went through all the trainings, went through the draft process, and right before the draft, he pulled out and committed to Michigan again. And that was it. Like, I don't think he could have went to the draft, got drafted in the second round, and said, you know what, I'm coming to Michigan instead. I think there was a clear cut where if he didn't pull out by a certain date, he had to go to the NBA whether he was drafted or not. Because I remember I've seen people complain about, like, football players for teams that aren't as, like, talented or at the top of the game, where it's like, hey, some like Texas Tech player could have came back but decided to go to the NFL early, didn't get drafted, and now he has nowhere to go, right? Well, okay. Like, if they change the rule where dudes aren't getting drafted, or like you can just get drafted and not sign, then what's the point? Because then in the NFL, they don't want to have to deal with that headache. Could you imagine if dudes could just not get drafted and then go back to the college? Because they got drafted. Like, what if Quinn Ewers, dude? Right now, Quinn Ewers gets drafted in the 7th round. He says, you know what? I'm going to go play at Michigan. I'll let Bryce Underwood learn under me for a year. They have a good like team recruiting kicking right now. What would stop him from doing that and then getting drafted in the 2nd round the next year? Because I think he had one more year of eligibility. Like, there'd be nothing stopping him.
Did you see the interview that the owner of the Bengals had?
No, what was he saying?
Under 99% of the times, like, ownership of the Bengals is notorious for being cheapskates. Here's the language that I believe is holding up this contract. He said, if players right now are trying to negotiate for these guaranteed money contracts,
yeah,
and he feels like if they do something legally to get themselves in trouble, he doesn't feel that he should be obligated to continue to pay their salary if they go to jail.
Well, he shouldn't have to do that. That's what he's in the contract against fighting?
That's part of that they want the money guaranteed regardless of what their status is. And that's the language that's being toted right now.
Well, he didn't go to Georgia, so he's not like street racing or anything, right?
But you know what? I'm going to give credit where credit's due, because if there's a team that deals with players getting themselves in trouble all the time, it is the Bengals.
Well, I will say this, like, if you're at a regular job, right, you can't just go get arrested and then be like, bro, well, where my paycheck
What you get? We get domestic violence.
Like, dude.
All right, well, make sure the reports are in on Wednesday.
Yeah, like, I'm at jail. I might be a little bit late, but I missed my last paycheck. What's going on? Because, I mean, honestly, that's what it's crazy that for random football dudes, they have people fighting for their labor laws, but any other job, it's like, nah, they could fire you anytime. You can go to a Coldplay concert and get fired because you're dancing with some lady that you work with. And then acting a fool. Like, I don't understand it. Like, go ahead, hold out. And then people aren't going to want to play with the Bengals, and you're going to have an Eli Manning situation where the families are like, we don't want to play for you. You guys stink. And then what? They're forced to sell the team? I mean, they made that Panthers owner sell, and their team sucked ever since. I'm not saying that guy was a good guy or a good owner or whatever. But
yeah,
that we'll just see what happens. I don't know. We'll kick back in on some of these contracts. They're not the only guys holding out. And the Hall of Fame game is next week, right? I'm afraid to look stuff up in case Teams crashes on me again. The main preseason kickoff, I think, is like the 30th or 31st, which would be after next week's show. So we'll be able to do a proper preseason show next week and actually have some football being played, which I'm excited about, because this is kind of the last off-season show that I don't know. I don't understand some of the arguments of things getting off. Going back, like the highlight of the news this week is it's media days, I think, for the Big Ten. I think they started today. There's so many teams now, I don't know. Like Michigan's on Thursday. And the main thing coming out of that, and I think the ACC had theirs, because their commissioner is saying that they need unity between the teams. And I agree with the Big Ten commissioner, and I'm glad he's doubling down, saying he doesn't want to talk to these other conferences if they're not playing 9-game schedules. Personally, I don't remember if the ACC is going on a 9-game schedule, but I don't care. The Big Ten should not be caring what the ACC is doing if they're playing an 8-game schedule on a conference that already is weak. Like, let's just throw it out there now. You didn't add any top teams. Like the Big Ten, you could say that the Big Ten was top heavy and not as like mid power in the past, but now that they merged with the Pac-12, basically, that's no longer the case. I think the Big Ten can go up and down with the SEC any day now. They have more teams. You cut out the bottoms and do like a fake ACC Big Ten challenge like they used to do in basketball, where the ACC's worst team didn't have to play. And it's like, why is the ACC better? It's like, yeah, they're taking the worst team and everyone's getting slotted down. Of course they're going to lose. And then once the conference is evened up, the Big Ten started winning the challenge and everyone was surprised by that. Like, no, now it's just even, so it should go back and forth. That's kind of what it is now with like the Big Ten having more teams. Like, yeah, the bottom might be kind of weak, but the bottom of the SEC isn't good either. Like, I saw they were putting a chart out on Twitter. I don't know who put it out, but I saw that they were saying like the last SEC national championship, most of the teams didn't even have a national championship or anything. And so even the ones that like Tennessee was like from the 90s, and like I think A&M was like from the 30s or something. But there was a good chunk of the conference that hasn't won any championships. They're not good. They never were good. They're not going to be good. They're not going to hold any weight if the Big Ten and the NCAA starts to merge into this, or the teams break off into some outside NCAA, NFL thing. Some of those teams that have never won, they're never going to win. Unless they do like an NFL light minor league system, and where they're bringing in owners and stuff and they're not tied to the college anymore. At that point, I wouldn't care and I wouldn't watch, though. I already have minor league options available to me in other sports that I don't watch. right? College is kind of unique. I've said it before. A lot of people have a tie to either the school or the area. Universities employ a lot of people. Professional teams do not employ near as many people as what universities do. Like, I know multiple people that not only work at a university or have worked there or whatever, but a lot of people have ties to some of these schools, and that's why they feel connected to the football teams or the basketball teams. So make the stadium smaller, do whatever you want to do, but a lot of these bigger schools, yeah, they're bigger, they have more fans, they have bigger stadiums. Like, there's going to be a little bit of an advantage. It's great when underdogs, like I'll consider Clemson an underdog, it's great when they had their run. Like, it's great. It's great when Spurrier was at South Carolina and they came close, right?
No.
Why not?
Don't need either one. Don't need either one.
I know, because you hate Clemson, but you need to have some underdogs. Like, if SMU or Boise State would have went on a run last year, or heck, even Arizona State, it would have been great. Maybe they didn't win it all. Awesome. But if they would have upset Texas, think of how hot that Texas seat would have been. And they were close to doing it. Didn't they go to overtime or 2 overtimes? And so that's the one where it's like, all right, you need to have some other teams in. I get it. But the ACC saying, hey, we want to have a system that ESPN controls, picking teams when they're clearly biased against the Big Ten now, and just flat out saying stuff against Michigan and some of the other Big Ten teams where it's clear that they know that if Michigan gets sanctioned by the NCAA, that it's going to hurt a little bit of the TV rankings and it's going to help the SEC. And I thought it was very, very important, and I know some other people would disagree based on some texts I've gotten, that the Big Ten going to bat for Michigan, saying that penalties should already be served. And I think we hinted at this in June, because that's when the story leaked, and they said that's when the letter was written. And I said, I'm feeling good about this as a Michigan fan, because it seems like they realize that the penalties don't really match the crime or anything. They said it was sign stealing. Sign stealing isn't illegal, by the way. It still isn't illegal. The bylaw that was broken would have been pre-scouting an opponent. Again, it's a really gray area. The way he did it most likely was breaking the rules, right? In the past, every other case has only been a monetary fine, though. So for suspending Harbaugh for 3 games and effectively firing that employee when there's been cases of employees being able to keep their job after scouting ahead and only paying a fine, that's kind of rough. And I think that's why Stallions has been out on Twitter now defending himself. They went to the hearing. I think they probably laid out all the precedents saying, like, look, if you give me a show clause penalty or whatever, there's really no precedent for it. Like, there's nothing really stopping Stallions from getting hired back at Navy. If like the Michigan, if they want to keep him like as a show cause for Michigan, that's fine. But I don't think the guy should be out of coaching. I really don't think that he did anything wrong, especially if he was hired by Central Michigan to scout Michigan State. Because is there a rule against that? Can you have a job with 2 teams? That I don't know. That's never been talked about or brought up.
Ethically, that sounds like that should not be a thing.
Yeah, but you're 2 teams in 2 different conferences. A lot of the non-competes are conference only, right? But like Michigan State, or not Michigan State, Ohio State can hire Michigan's defensive coordinator, Greg Madison, right? Randomly right before a season and effectively get all the signs. That's fine. Stallions getting hired by Central Michigan because they know he's has an analytics report on Michigan State. That's a gray area. So, and honestly, they had suspended him before the Michigan State game, so I don't think that they could even take any games away. Because if you say, well, we have proof that Stallions scouted Michigan State ahead, well, we suspended him before that game. Okay, is that the only game that he did? Yeah. Again, what's the penalty? So the Big Ten going to bat and saying, all right, Harbaugh suspended 3 games is kind of above and beyond for sign stealing, and Styons is fired, and I think Partridge is fired from that too. There were a couple coaches that were let go for cooperating with the NCAA investigation when it happened. Then it leaves.
But that's also an issue that I have with the NCAA, because we've talked about this countless times, where it's like, be consistent with how you interpret your rules. And I know that there's not a cookie cutter response to every single thing, but you can't have Georgia, for example, having players year in, year out with like heavy speeding, heavy DUI citations, injuring people, and have nothing, and then say that's fine, but then this thing is going to be worse. Or North Carolina can be creating classes that don't exist to keep their players eligible for basketball. They can keep all their championships, and you can't do that. There has to. You can't say, because of the Stallions thing, and don't get me wrong, I think it was a little bit Bush League that they jumped through those hoops, but at the end of the day, what's done is done at this point. Like, you just keep trying to bring it up, and it's sour grapes at this point. Like, you had an opportunity where you could have, if you really wanted to call foul on it, you would have. But the people higher up in the NCAA didn't want to make an issue of it. It was just a pick and choose battle.
And I agree. I think they had a chance. They suspended Harbaugh. They really tried to derail the season, and they got rid of all the people that were involved in the sign stealing stuff. Michigan had proof, because my argument with it is it was in the middle of the season. Michigan State complained. Michigan State did not have a good team, and they suspended Stallions. He never got a chance to kind of explain himself, and it came out that Ohio State already had Michigan signs anyway, and Purdue had them, and said that other teams were giving them to them before the Big Ten championship game. And I was I've been anti-Purdue on this show a lot, right, randomly, but to have them come to Michigan's defense is kind of weird. And it's like, so Michigan had no chance to defend itself. They win the national championship that year. If they take any games away, really, like the commissioner of the NCAA said, like, that game is kind of untouchable at that point. Harbaugh had been suspended. Everyone had been already let go, right? They didn't get to defend themselves until now, like 2 years later, right? The Sharon Moore deleting text thing, they recovered the text. He said that, like, his defense was I guess it doesn't make really sense. I mean, he's a 30-something-year-old guy. He said he deletes text threads all the time. I don't know if they had proof that he deleted it right when the NCAA person came, but people forget Urban Meyer did the same exact thing. And they weren't going to fire him. Remember that. It was only until the lynch mob came for him for the domestic violence thing. And all the other stuff that leaked out of, like, him signing off on Zach Smith's whatever purchases in the office. And, like, a bunch of other weird stuff where they finally really pushed him out. And so that's another thing, too. Like, the NCAA didn't do anything to Ohio State for the same thing. Now, I get it. Okay, he left, so they couldn't punish him. That's kind of what they're going to do with Harbaugh. But they had already suspended Harbaugh 3 times. That was the Big Ten doing that. And they already suspended Sharon Moore a game, I think. So how many other coaches have deleted text? I don't know. The NCAA never got to suspend Urban. If Urban takes another coaching job, do they get to suspend him? Like, that's the only fair thing. I'm on your side, dude. It should be like the Supreme Court where they say, like, all right, we have 3 similar rulings. This is what we did. It was like a fine. That's what we're going to do. Case closed to save that. The recruiting cheeseburger thing, COVID stuff, I don't really care about COVID stuff at all. The Big Ten was at a disadvantage because of some of the state laws. Michigan should not be punished because of their own state laws. I don't care. As a fan, I think anything like COVID, it was a weird time in the country. Throw it out. That goes for any program. And like you brought up the UNC thing, the UNC thing is clearly deliberate. There's no way for a school to go on academic probation from their accreditation which is unheard of and has never happened again, to my knowledge, at such a big, prestigious school. That the NCAA was like, not our problem, right? Because that's the thing with the vacating wins, right? Because Penn State had their wins vacated over the Sandusky thing, didn't they? And then after Penn State fought back, they were all reinstated because in the NCAA bylaws, the only way they can vacate wins is if you have an ineligible player. From everything that the NCAA has put out to Michigan, there's nothing in there about playing an ineligible player. It's all about scouting ahead, which has never led to vacating wins. So we'll see what happens. I'm glad the Big Ten is kind of saying, like, no, this needs to be over. We've heard things where it was like the Big Ten's already made its decision. They don't care how many angry Ohio State and Michigan State fans there are. They're not changing their mind. That was clearly in reference to this letter and the commissioner standing up for Michigan. And, I mean, great. I hope he has their back, and I hope they get this taken care of. And I'm glad he's fighting for the playoff thing because I agree with him. The Big Ten should keep pushing for auto bids in the playoffs if other conferences are going to play weak schedules. And I'm not just singling out the ACC. The SEC does the same crap. They don't want to play 9 games. They want to go off rankings, but when you add one cupcake game extra, the Big Ten's playing each other, so that's a guaranteed loss for half the conference that the SEC doesn't have to have because they're playing Mercer or somebody, right? So they might never lose a game. They might lose one non-conference cupcake game a year, right? So then their records are artificially inflated, just like Boise State's or whatever. That's the argument against those other conferences, right? Like all the Mountain West, their conference is weak. They don't use the same argument against the SEC, though. And now with the expanded playoff, I was sharing a buddy of mine, like the SEC against the Big Ten getting throttled last year. Like Alabama losing to Michigan. That was a 9-3 Alabama team that people wanted in the playoffs. Losing to 7-5 Michigan. Getting hammered on the offensive line again. 2 years in a row, Alabama couldn't block Michigan. And that was with Alabama having nobody sitting out. So people can say, the people sitting out, like that might affect Georgia or somebody. No, Bama had nobody sitting out. And so the hype coming in for them this year, I don't know where it's coming from. Other than saying DeBoer played the wrong quarterback last year, which maybe he did. I don't know what Florida State's doing, but they have a chance to make a statement. Hadn't they been beating LSU with Norvell?
Yes, twice.
So if Florida State beats Bama, I've said it, I haven't been impressed by the way DeBoer plans against like the Michigan defense in both appearances, right? That national championship game was nothing. Like that game was over within one Donovan Edwards touchdown run or two of them back to back. So then not last year with Milroe, do you think he would have attacked the weaknesses of Michigan's defense? No, couldn't do it. And Michigan had no offense. So like that's the most baffling thing last year. So we'll see what happens. I'm getting excited for it. I just want to see how this shakes out and then what SEC teams are supposed to be on top, that they need all these teams ranked in the top 10. Because I don't see it. I also have seen Penn State number 1. You think Penn State will win the national championship?
The big negative, Ghost Rider.
If they do, that's 3 in a row for the Big Ten, dude, since NIL.
I would be shocked if they did.
I'm surprised how well Notre Dame's been recruiting. They have old money that is clearly fed up with the past 20 years, 30 years. When's the last time they won a big bowl game? I guess last year, right? They made it to the Natty. That would have been the first time they won a BCS game ever, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not really BCS games anymore. So maybe that's why all the money's flowing. But I don't really consider them a Big Ten school. If they want to join the Big Ten and then win a national championship, I guess I'd be okay with it. I'd rather have them win it than Ohio State, right? But at this point, it doesn't seem likely. Honestly, I still would rather have Florida State and Miami join. I think that'd be better for the conference. Especially now, because the Big Ten, I know we talked recruiting. I don't know how well the listeners follow recruiting, but a lot of the Big Ten heavy, Michigan and Ohio State, we've been recruiting Texas a lot. There's no Big Ten Texas team. And there's really no candidates, right? Unless they sway A&M like I've been talking about. But is A&M even worth it? How many years of Texas losing and not getting the same TV money as the Big Ten does it take for them to finally join the Big Ten? That's what it comes down to, right? They threw a fit with the SWAC, right? Isn't that what they were in before? The Southwest Conference. Then they made the Big 12. They threw a fit there. They were supposed to merge with the Pac-12. They threw a fit. Then they killed the Big 12 and left to go to the SEC because they weren't getting their way. ESPN threw all that money at them with the Longhorn Network or whatever that never worked out. I want to know behind closed doors how awful that network performed and how much money they lost on that. And now SEC is basically, there's a good chance I've been seeing the NIL earnings and stuff, dude. There's a good chance the SEC just becomes a newer version of the Pac or the Big 12 where it's just Texas and somebody else. Might not be Oklahoma. Might be like Texas and Bama or Texas and Georgia every year, where it's two teams that are going to be competing and maybe getting it done. But I don't think you're going to see the balance like we've seen where the SEC and the BCS era had 6 different teams win a national championship. I think those days are gone. If you were given a prediction, what are the odds of seeing Auburn win a national championship the next 10 years?
Slim to none.
Yeah. What about who else won it from them that wasn't like a Georgia or Alabama? LSU is probably a good chance, I would say.
But I'm going to throw this one out there. A really random team is Missouri, because of the randos of the SEC, they've been one that somehow manages to get in the backdoor their way into the SEC championship game, and they've had some lopsided losses, but at the same time, I'm not going to fault them because they're competing at a much better level than some of the teams that you would think are premier programs.
So basically, you're saying they're the Iowa of the SEC, where they have a great team every couple years, right? The Kirk Ferentz formula. That's basically what they are. Same-ish colors, very similar location.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's a Wisconsin where even now though, I looking across the Big Ten and those SEC teams, yeah, they have a chance, but I think even imagine they win the SEC or they make the playoffs now and they have a great team. They have to rip through a bunch of SEC teams that are more talented than them and then have a chance of running into an Ohio State juggernaut like Tennessee did last year and just getting throttled, where people were almost oh my gosh, that's how far behind Tennessee is. I mean, it happened to Michigan. Remember the first time they broke through in the playoffs and they went up against Georgia with Cade and they didn't have a dynamic quarterback play with JJ? And that was it. The game wasn't close. And it was kind of eye-opening, all right, they've made it this far, but they're still a little bit behind. And then convincing all those guys to come back 2 years in a row and keep making it you got to chip away at it. And then Ohio State's doing the same thing. And now Penn State's doing the same thing, where if Penn State wins the national championship this year, they're following that same blueprint of Michigan, getting high-level guys, might not be all blue chips. I guess they are considered blue chips. Might not be all 5 stars. We'll say there. Michigan had a handful. Ohio State had more. And then Penn State has a handful. They're pretty much closer to Michigan. But their blueprint right now this year is they get everyone to come back. They were close last year. Had a bad turnover, very similar to Michigan losing to TCU. Penn State should have beat Notre Dame, and then they always play Ohio State tough. So they're at least comparative to Ohio State, where all they had to do was score a touchdown against them. Heck, if they score against Ohio State and beat them last year, Ohio State might not even have made the playoffs. Because that would have been an extra loss, and that would knock them all the way down. And then who's the national champ? Penn State? Notre Dame? Could you imagine if it was Notre Dame? Notre Dame over Penn State in the Natty? Oh. Or heck, maybe Oregon then gets new life, right? They didn't really lose to anybody. It could be them. They could have got their first Natty. And that's where I think a lot of the SEC schools, they've had money, they're able to win. The Big Ten hasn't had schools that are willing to spend until now, with Oregon and USC coming in, where it's like now the Big Ten has like 5 or 6 teams that are willing to spend to win in football, and they haven't had that before. And these are teams that have been competing at the top level. Like USC has won national championships, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State. Oregon hasn't, but they're close. And then you still have that middle group of like, I'm throwing Nebraska in there. They should be at the top of the group, but they've sucked so long now that you can't really consider them a contender, can you? Like them, Wisconsin, Iowa, schools that like have natties in past year, where it's like maybe they can win one in the new time. That's kind of where I throw Nebraska. I'm not really dogging Nebraska. I just don't think, until I see it, they're like that kid that just talks about his glory days in high school. Like, remember how whenever I was so good, it's like, were you even good? Or is it just like in your head that you remember being good? That's how I view Nebraska. And it has to kill them, because you brought up Missouri. Could you imagine us talking about how great Missouri is instead of Nebraska in the Midwest teams? And then I brought up Iowa. I mean, Nebraska, that's themselves. They can't beat Iowa. Can't beat Iowa, then what are we going to do? We can't make up wins for them. That's one of Michigan's first games. That game might have Sharon Moore suspended. That's the one thing that they haven't, because they really don't have a precedence of like deleting those texts, where it seems like the NCAA wants to kind of hit him hard because they want to be able to show other teams that deleting texts is bad, which I agree. I mean, if that's what you're going to do. But all those other coaches, I think Michigan's already finished with, the guys that went to the NFL other than Harbaugh because he didn't show up. But Harbaugh did go meet with the president. So,
which just goes to show, if you cheat, then just go to the NFL.
Like Pete Carroll.
Pete Carroll, Jim Harbaugh, Chip Kelly, cheaters.
Yeah, but Chip Kelly didn't win anything in the NFL. He's more like a Nick Saban, bro.
Yeah, but he just won a national championship at Ohio State.
Does that count?
The scandal hasn't hit yet. I'm sure they did something illegal.
Who, Ohio State?
Yeah.
Oh, they'll brush it under the rug. No, they self-report, dude. That's the thing. Like, they were reporting, because there's still that investigation or whatever they were talking about into that Catapult video company that no one has brought anything else up on or whatever, where teams had access to practice footage. And it turned out that 2 former Ohio State football staffers were the ones that had access. So do you really think they were giving Michigan practice footage? I highly doubt it, right?
Oh, here's all the signals.
Yeah, and then maybe
you're into that.
Maybe that's how the other teams got Michigan signals. These bros are just like, hey, we'll steal your signals. Because there were also 2 other guys. That's why that was it the Brohio guy from that Netflix doc, where he like supposedly tracked Connor Stallion's Venmo, and then it turned out that Ohio State and Notre Dame both had guys doing the same thing. It looked like paying for like iPhone footage at games.
Well, I'm sure that it's much more prevalent.
Like I honestly, like, to me, that's the thing. Investigate it, whatever. If he wore disguise, I hope that they bring that up in the thing and say, like, we've confirmed that it was him in the disguise and he can't coach at Michigan. He's on the show clause. I would say, okay. Right? That would be funny. It would be a horrible decision. I mean, people make dumb decisions all the time. I joked about that Coldplay CEO or whatever at that concert. People make dumb decisions all the time. I don't know what was going through his head, if that actually, I love Michigan so much, but I have buddies here that they want me to scout them against Michigan State. Another game that they also lost right? Didn't Michigan State win that game? So, like, if they had facts where it's like, because that was what the NCAA ruled originally, for people that don't know, is that scouting in the future scouting has really not given a team an advantage ever. I think someone pulled a bunch of Vegas odds where I think one of the head guys from Vegas even said, like, if we knew that Michigan had all the signs, our lines would move 0%. Because we base it on, like, the players you have and, like, the success rate of the coaches or whatever. Not so much if you know the other team's signs, because in reality, if you're getting your signs stolen, you could just huddle. Which is the truth. Like, you can do something, like, you can just stop signaling. And that's why, like, Mike Leach, rest in peace, he was kind of just laughing about it, saying, like, dude, I throw fake signals all the time, but we're going to beat you. Because I know what you're lined up as, and you can know what's going to come. But, like, just because you know the play doesn't mean you know where the quarterback's going to throw it. And, like, just throw a little bit of a wrinkle in. Like, instead of a guy running, like, his dig a little bit flat, he goes a little bit up more. Touchdown. Like, you don't know. There's too many other variables. Low snap, like a guy slips or something on each play that you just don't know. So I'm hoping that it's over. Hopefully it'll be over. I honestly thought when they leaked that Big Ten thing over the weekend, and I knew the Big Ten media days were coming, I thought if it was going to be a hammer or bad, that the NCAA would have purposely pushed it right now before Big Ten media days. The other thing that they could do, if they're going to hammer Michigan, is to push it right when the season starts. But then again, that kind of buries it, right? Because there's no football right now. So, like, if the NCAA really wanted to make a statement, right now is the time to publish it. There's nothing else on, right? You hammer Michigan right now and make a point. They didn't do it. They could still do it. They could still hammer them and try to give them the death penalty. I think I sent you for show notes, some rival fans were putting together what they would have penalized Michigan with, which includes like a 2-year death penalty. And Sharon Moore can't coach until like 29, and like all this other ridiculous stuff.
And this is like part of my argument with it, is that like SMU already received the death penalty before, and they saw from like a competitive standpoint that SMU was there in the national championship talk, and then it didn't just cripple the program, like it completely sawed it in half, so much that I feel like another school will never receive the death penalty, because the amount of just overall damage done to the athletic program as a whole, they don't want to see that happen to anyone else ever again. So,
but see, that was at a time when you couldn't pay players.
I agree, but you can still, if you really gave a team a death penalty, good luck trying to recruit them on the back end.
Oh, I think they would be hit with so many lawsuits right now just because, A, like I said, there's no precedent. Like the Penn State winning their lawsuit against them to get their wins back for the pretender thing. There was no precedent in that. They tried to make it like an egregious case. Yeah, it happened on football facilities, and I think they tried to tie it to like recruiting trips or something. But even then, it wasn't like a athletics advantage. Like they weren't winning games because they had a predator on the staff, right? Like that's like the most crazy argument. So like the Michigan thing here, were they only winning because of signals? Like not really. Is Harbaugh, like if he was like a Gene Chizik where he had one good year, then I think eyebrows would be raised, right?
He had 2 good years.
And I go back to that where it's like Cam Newton. Everyone kept saying about how Auburn was going to get hammered. They win the national championship. Guess what? They're not going to hammer a team that wins the national championship, really. Right? Because, like, all the talk, I honestly thought that I was wondering if Auburn would have lost with Cam Newton if they actually would have got hammered. Because then you have the thing where it's like, all right, well, The SEC isn't going to hammer a program that just won the national championship. That's kind of what the Big Ten argument is. Like, I knew for a fact, like, it would be really hard for the Big Ten to punish Harbaugh, still watch his team win the national championship, get all the money and publicity from that, which in turn made Ohio State win the national championship the next year, and then say, you know what, we do want to remove our own national championship. Heck no. That was the knock on the Big Ten for like 2 decades. They barely won any national championships. They're not going to give away a back-to-back national championship. Right? That's crazy. That's like the number one thing that the SEC had, and that's why I heard some SEC preview. I don't know if you saw some of the media days, but one of their coaches was talking about how it's not all about national championships, Matt. They have large stadiums in SEC country. They have good TV ratings. I was like, what am I listening to? It sounds like me rationalizing Michigan getting killed by Georgia. And this is an SEC coach, right? So, I don't know. It's crazy. It's like a crazy flip whenever, if the Big Ten wins and Michigan doesn't get hammered, and a Big Ten school, Oregon, Penn State, doesn't even have to be Ohio State or Michigan. I would honestly rather see a new school win. Because I don't think if Michigan wins the national championship with the freshman Bryce Underwood, that would kind of be insane, and I would love to see it. I just don't think it's going to happen as a freshman. But if Michigan wins it next year, I would rather have a Big Ten team win it in between. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing Penn State win it just to shut up a lot of people in the South, because I know, and I know a lot of Michigan fans don't agree with me on this, they don't want any team up north to win. Awesome. And I get that. Maybe have Oregon win it then. But I think having the Big Ten keep winning it takes away the number one SEC recruiting advantage, and that's been their talk about how they're the best conference and how they have the best talent and all this stuff. If they start losing the national championship and can't break through again for a while, then the recruiting floodgates are open. It's kind of like how Michigan's beat Ohio State 4 years in a row. Now recruits can't bring that up. Because for a while there, the Urban Meyer days, they were talking like recruits were saying, I can't go to Michigan because like they can't beat Ohio State. Now they can't say that. And it's like, well, Ohio State's still pretty good. They won the national championship, but they still can't beat Michigan. It's kind of weird. Like, we don't know why. And now it's in their heads, right? And so if the Big Ten wins 2 more national championships and the SEC can't get one, it doesn't even have to be the Big Ten. Heck, you could throw in an ACC team or a Big 12 team or something. And I think you'll start to see pressure from ESPN because they put all this money in the SEC. They're hoping Texas wins it. I think a lot of the other teams have holes where we could be seeing that Penn State national championship this year. All you have to do is have a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over. That's my last thing. So, anything else you want to talk about today?
The only other big thing was the reports of the WNBA that came out. The women are trying to leverage for more money, but when you look at some of the details of this, like the WNBA has never turned a profit, and yet they're still trying at this point to leverage the WNBA and the NBA for more money.
And so that's the one thing too, where I saw that and I wondered, what are they supposed to do? It's kind of like I brought up regular jobs and the NFL guaranteed contract. If they think, hey, I deserve XYZ money, right? And they hold out and their business goes out, like bankrupt, what happens? Like I see with the women's soccer team, great, you're winning and you're doing these publicities, but I've been to some women's soccer events and I'm not like, I don't want to kind of knock the national team, but they're not really well put together, right? I mean, I'm sure we've all seen events where it's like, hey, come see, and I'm sure NIL is just as bad in some of these places. But I've been to some Michigan events that are very well run and organized, and it's like, man, that was awesome. I could see why people donate after like doing this. And then I see other like awkward things from like buddies, like, hey, I went to so-and-so's NIL thing. It's very uncomfortable. That's what the women's soccer events have been kind of to me, where it's just like people, it's like shuffling through. Oh, we see the women's soccer star for like 1 second, and then they leave. And it's like, okay, how are you supposed to get fans that way? Like, I remember being a kid, like at Tony Gwynn's, like going away party. I always bring up like random Tony Gwynn because he hit a home run and he was awesome, dude. He was down there like chatting fans up, and I mean, we weren't even that close, but it gave me like a respect. Like, this dude is here for the fans. And every time I've gone to like a women's Olympic soccer event, it's like I'm not trying to be like a weird guy. I don't understand it like an awkward thing, but it's like, dude, if you have kids there and they're supposed to look up to these and they want like more money from more events, I don't understand how you can't do more FaceTime, right? Like, there's only one way to make more money, is to promote yourself. And it's kind of like the WNBA, like pushing Caitlin Clark and like doing other things. Like, people want to see Caitlin Clark. The tickets cratered when she didn't play in the All-Star game. Honestly, I would have been pissed. It's kind of like when people were complaining about LeBron sitting out. You pay to see LeBron, he doesn't play. Hey, I'm going to be pissed. Like, in baseball, like, I'd be disappointed like if I went to see my pitcher and he was scratched, my favorite pitcher or something, and it's like, all right. But heck, I've been to baseball games and some football games where like you're just chatting up the players, and it's like, man, that seems like a great guy. Like, man, I'm going to be a big fan of his, right? Like, I joke about like going to the Steelers training camp and meeting Hines Ward and being surprised how small he was. Like, I've joked about that on the show multiple times. But guess who stayed and talked to the people? Hines Ward, right? It's like there's a reason why he was popular. And I've had a chance to him. The only one that I can remember, there was two. I think it was Brandy Chastain and like Mia Hamm, of course, were great. And of course, like Mia Hamm was like the most popular one, right? Some of these other ones, it's like you need to learn that it's semi-marketing. And I brought up like Ozzy at the beginning of the show, rest in peace again. He was great at the marketing side, doing crazy stunts. But guess what? Like, I went to an Ozzy concert like at one of the Oz Fests, and he had like extra stuff put up, and he was just seemed like a great guy. And I've always respected him for that. Not even like really interacting with him personally, but moving up and having like different people move up to like the free front tickets because you're like a poor kid and stuff. And having him come out and do that is just crazy. And so then you have some of these other athletes that are, it's like, I'm not saying like stay after and sign a bazillion autographs, because yeah, you're going to have creeps that are just trying to get autographs to sell on eBay and stuff. But I mean, like, if there's kids there and you're there in like a 1-minute walkthrough, it's weird. And you don't deserve it. And pushing out your best stars is also weird, and I don't understand it. So I don't know. I don't know if that adds anything. But, and I don't know if you've had any experiences, right?
No, I mean, I agree, and I think when you look at some of the pricing, they had their All-Star game, and the ticket prices like were sliced as soon as they realized, okay, if Clark isn't playing, all right, then we're not going. And I think when you look at how that's driving some of the league, it just makes sense that you can't say we need a bigger slice of the pie when you're like body slamming the face of the league.
Well, they're trying to make it so that they keep bringing up the comparison to Bird and Magic Johnson, where it's like Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. And I've seen some people say reasons behind on why. But the reason they don't want her to be Jordan is because after Jordan, there wasn't anybody for a while, right? And the league has never been the same after Jordan. LeBron has never been able to recap what Jordan had. The league has never been, it's only been, the most popular the league NBA has been is when Jordan was there. And so right now, I think the league is afraid that Caitlin Clark is their Jordan, and the ratings aren't up really that much. So if this is the most popular the league's ever going to be, this is it, dude. It's over. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, she can raise them up as she gets into like her Jordan winning championships later stage or whatever, but I don't know if they keep pushing her down, if they're ever going to reach that height, because I remember like I remember like my mom, like she never even watched basketball. She wanted to watch like some Jordan finals in the 90s, and that was kind of how I first, and she was pumped that he was on the dream team. I remember her telling me, like, I was probably like 7 or 8, like, hey, we want to watch the Olympic basketball? Michael Jordan's playing and Charles Barkley. And I'm like, I don't know these guys, but like I distinctively remember my mom talking about Charles Barkley and Michael Jordan. And to me, and I knew Larry Bird because people said my dad looked like Larry Bird all the time. So like, I think all three of them were on the same team, right? So like to me, you're having the 3 best guys in the league on the same team. That's insane. And then having Jordan in the finals all those years and knowing that he's the best guy as a kid and seeing Bulls jerseys all over. That's what Caitlin Clark's doing. Like, even when Larry Bird was around, I know I wasn't, like, in the 80s, but I don't know if people were just wearing Magic Johnson and Larry Bird jerseys around. I don't know if they really were. I think that was more of, like, a manufactured rivalry, don't you think? Just, like, the 2 biggest markets. Awesome. It's kind of like the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. People aren't really tuning in for players on either of those teams. They're tuning in for the game because they know it's going to be heated and intense. It's going to be, like, an awesome match. That's kind of what those Bird and Johnson teams reminded me of, even looking back. Where Jordan, you're tuning in for Jordan. It's like people tuning in to watch Barry Bonds. And I don't know if any, other than Ohtani, no offense to any other baseball guys, I really don't know anyone personally in my friends group that has said that they've tuned in to a baseball game just to watch one guy other than Barry Bonds and Ohtani. And Caitlin Clark is in that discussion where people are tuning into WNBA just to watch her. Right? Do you agree?
I would agree with that.
I mean, Poulos is close, but he just wasn't on that Homer stratosphere where Bonds is breaking Hank Aaron's record and people were like, I got to see this because this might never happen ever again. And now with Ohtani playing both ways, I think that's why people are on the same thing where it's like, this guy's doing things that we might never see again. So all right. Anything else you want to talk about?
No.
All right. I'm sure Matt will be filling us in on Caitlin Clark next week. I'll be talking about Michigan scandal once again for 38 weeks in a row. Actually, more than that, right? One day it'll be over and then we'll be celebrating, dude. And then I won't know what to talk about. My man Harbaugh's gone. They made him leave. Caitlin Clark is injured, so she hasn't really been playing. Do you keep talking about people that are injured? Right? Just come back next week and find out. Thanks for listening, and then we'll see you then.